Hello everybody. I've been aching to play some DST, so let's play some DST. Today we're going to be starting a new playthrough as Winona, a character I've really been enjoying after she got her insight tree, and trying to see just exactly how we can bend the will of the constant to be ours. I want to make massive catapult batteries to fell hordes of enemies, a nice fancy base to call home, and I even want to make the giants of this land fall by nothing more than fiercely propelled rocks. Also, we're going to be checking out the new Year of the Depths Worm event that just landed and score ourselves some new Gilded worm kills and those big fancy lanterns. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Every journey starts the same, and ours started on day 1. Feels like it's been forever since I said that. As we hop out of the portal, we do our usual song and dance of getting all the materials we need to not die within the first few moments. Our spawn region was honestly kind of sparse, except for the marsh and clockworks literally right next to us. An amazing find. Too many times have I had worlds where clockworks stay hidden for so long. Now, we'll go over exactly what insight perks I took for this playthrough as they're relevant, though you can quickly check here if you want a little spoiler. But one of these perks will require me to pick a bunch of flowers alongside all the grass and twigs, as we need them to make our rose-coloured glasses. Yep, we're doing Shadow Winona for this playthrough. These glasses, only available under their respective perk, offer a whole heap of perks and abilities. But we'll get to those when we use them. For now, it gives us a tiny bit of sanity regen at the cost of having this horrible pink filter over everything. For my sake and yours, I try to wear these glasses as little as possible. The 1.3 sanity a minute isn't worth the headache, the price we pay for forbidden knowledge. I see why Maxwell is so miserable all the time now. As we explore around dusk of the first day, we luckily find the Meteor Field biome. An amazing find early on, especially for Winona. Now, I've not gone over Winona herself yet, so how about we do that? Her stats are perfectly average, typical 150 HP, 200 sanity, 150 hunger. Her innate trait is that she can craft stuff super fast at the cost of hunger, as well as having an extra hit in the dark from Charlie. Her downside being that if she's too hungry, she crafts stuff extremely slowly, to the point of it being dangerous. But on top of her innate perks, she can craft a whole heap of stuff. You got your trusty tape that's like a one-time use sewing kit / boat patch, generators to let you power other gadgets such as auto-attacking catapults, and even a nifty spotlight that illuminates you in the dark. Fancy. These are just her core abilities though, and on their own, nothing too amazing. But as we progress through the days, I'll show you just how much of a powerhouse Clay made her with her insight tree. So, why was the meteor biome an amazing thing to find early on? Well, rocks, gold and flint are useful to everyone, but especially to Winona, as her catapults need a lot of rocks, and we're going to need a lot of catapults. Good thing this is easily accessible then, huh? Just like this free miner's hat that we found in the very same biome. Honestly, this is one of the best starts I've ever had in DST. A miner's hat this early is incredibly useful. With the aid of this cool hat, I chopped some trees throughout the night, making our first science machine, backpack, shovel, you name it, right as day 2 broke. I continued to chop up the trees to get the materials to pre-craft our alchemy engine, ready for whenever we set up our base. I also made my first generator and catapult. Typically these are structures, but since I took the portability perk, I can lug them around and move them as I please. Before this perk existed, moving your structures was such a hassle. You had to use a hammer and rebuild them anytime you wanted to move them. But it's time I show you the first use of these fancy rose-coloured glasses. You can closely inspect any flower to turn it into a rose. But if you closely inspect it again, you will get a fragile rose. This item, for as long as we have it in our inventory, makes us kind of immortal. If we die whilst holding this flower, Charlie herself will just revive us, letting us keep all of our inventory and items, and even without reducing our max health, for the low price of 1 flower. And you can carry multiple of these. This is stupidly broken. Anyway, with a shovel in hand, I started to dig up grass tufts, saplings and berry bushes as I continued to scour the land for their place to make our base. Location is everything for making a base as Winona, as you'll soon be privy to. But as I trawl around getting everything I need for a healthy base, I decided to map out this wormhole near the spawn. It leads to a marsh, so I end up going right back through it, but it's good that we marked both of these holes because thanks to our glasses, these wormholes will become immensely valuable. Not right now though, as it's day 3 and it's time for me to show you the next use of these glasses. If you closely examine anything related to the shadows or Charlie herself, like this statue, you can produce a free piece of nightmare fuel every half a day. Never gonna say no to that. Close by though, we do find the stage, so I decided to set up my catapult and generator to deal with the Briarhounds that spawn after I perform. Is it overkill? Absolutely, but it's worth it for the free umbrella. We also find Chester not too far from the same stage, which is super good since our inventory is already filling up with so much stuff. It's kind of a secret downside to Winona. Your inventory is always going to be filled up with her gadgets and shadow toys, so Chester easing our burdens until we find a place for a base is a gift from above. So as we're putzing about, we gotta remember to milk these statues for nightmare fuel. God, I'm never using that verbiage again. Nightmare fuel is always useful, and honestly not that hard to get, but a steady trickle saves me from having to go insane for it. Especially since I took a perk that lets me power my generators with nightmare fuel. We never end up using Niter to fuel these generators, which is what they typically accept thanks to these perks. It's insanely good, pun intended. Thanks to the miner's hat, I was able to keep busy during the night and mine a bunch of rocks, so that when day 4 landed, I was able to make another catapult. We are going to need oh so many of these things in the long run, and the more we have now, the better. Doubly so because I haven't made any weapons or armor yet, so this is my main way of dealing with combat. What better way to put that to the test than with this knight? Only 2 catapults ain't gonna win any awards, but it saves me from having to risk myself when my machines can do all my fighting for me. As for catapult related perks, I decided to take the ones that increase the area of effect these things have instead of their speed. The attack speed perks are a DPS increase, but the AoE increasing ones make them way easier to hit and land targets with, which in a way kind of increases your DPS as well when you think about it. We clean up the knight and head back out, trying to avoid the bishop since that guy will mess me up when I try to get cute with him. Getting gears this early on will mean our food will be fresh from the get-go, provided we actually make a base soon, and not waste time throwing rocks at spiders for their silk. Actually, this is a good thing, since silk is something we're going to need lots of, since our trusty tape requires 1 to craft, and all of our machines require said tape. Why didn't I just attack the spider normally and stun knock it? To prove a point. I'm a big fan of characters that let others do their dirty work for them. Either way, we now have 3 catapults. Watch out, world. As dusk clambers the landscape, I jump through this wormhole and end up in a dark forest. A dark forest with a free crockpot. And a touchstone, which we can inspect as a source of nightmare fuel. Yeah, this is going to be where we make our base. You see, having a decent spot for a base is crucial as Shadow Winona, since you're limited in spots to live if you want to make use of her rose-tinted glasses. Thankfully for us, a touchstone is an unbreakable inspectable, but that's not the main reason this spot is perfect for our base. The other reason is that wormhole right nearby. Don't worry, we'll go over why these wormholes are so useful in case you don't know soon, I promise. So today was set. It was time to clear out all of these trees and start work on the base. We got the fire pit down, alchemy engine, and of course, pitchforking up the boundaries of where I want to build stuff. It's good to plan ahead of time, especially if you're as much of a neat freak as I am. Despite what you keep saying about our base in our world, Kezia, thank you very much. I even made a little spot down here for my toys if I need them. Day 6 began with me getting work on the kitchen area. We got the berry bushes already down as you can see, so it's time we see about making a place to store and cook all the food rotting away in my inventory. But despite this area already having a free crockpot, I did end up just hammering it and making my own since I'm such a picky guy when it comes to my bases. Sue me. Ah, we almost forgot about this guy, didn't we? Currently, the Year of the Depthsworm event is active, so we're able to make ourselves the cool looking worm shrine. By offering up some monster meat, we're allowed to access all sorts of Lunar New Year crafts, but sadly, they all require lucky gold nuggets. Guess we gotta go find some later then, huh? Because right now, we gotta spend our sparse resources on making some food flooring? Look, we live in a forest, okay? Wood ain't gonna be the rarest thing to find. It's fine. Having a nice looking base to come back to every day helps morale, and that's a very important thing to look out for. But do you know what else is good to look out for? Having an actual functioning kitchen area too, I guess. I wrap up day 6 hammering those pig heads for their valuable pigskin, as we have our first hound attack during the night. They send 1 dog after me that I pulverise with my catapults. My reward? Beard. Welcome to day 7. I finally got around to planting all those tufts and saplings in the base. Not the best spot for them in all honesty, because I know the grass gecko is running about will ruin my day, but whatever. let's take these catapults with us and go hunt a koalaphant, yeah? Our food situation is fine, but I just feel the urge to hunt something. On our way, we find the Moonstone, as well as the scrapyard not too far from our base. Seriously, this location is amazing. But our tracking eventually leads us to our quarry, which is, well, these things. I afford no risk and set up my catapults before engaging with whatever these things are, before they spring to life. Turns out, these are the titular depths worms this year is all about. During the event, as long as you have a shrine with meat in it, any hunt you do will lead you to these things. That's it, that's the event. It's simple as that. These creatures are pretty tough, but no match for my catapults, especially with the remote I made the other day. I forgot to mention, this remote lets you power on your catapults from a distance, and even issues special commands depending on what perks you have. I took the Barrage perk, which increases the fire rate of all catapults in an area by 50% for a short duration. I typically take the Manual Aiming perk, but today I felt like running Barrage. It worked a treat though, since those worms are toast and their coins are mine. I quickly dash back home after taking out some spiders and make a lightning rod as fast as I could, since a lightning storm just rolled in and I don't need that burning my base right about now. When the light of day 8 made itself known, I took those coins I pilfered from those worms and got myself one of these cool looking lampposts. Gives a decent bit of light and looks super pretty. I hope to have our base fully decked out in these cool lantern kits, but for that we'll need to hunt more and more worms, in due time. It's finally time I show you why I've been hyping up these wormholes so much and why we needed to live near one. You see, thanks to our ever useful magical glasses, if we are to inspect a wormhole, we're able to change our target destination to any other wormhole we've discovered. So now we have essentially a fast travel system that will hopefully reach us all over the mainland. You don't need me to tell you why this is useful, do you? Having a wormhole in our base means any wormhole we find in the wilderness, no matter how far away it may be, will always bring us right back home if we desire. I put this perk to good use to travel back to spawn. I make a quick beefalo bell at the science machine I left there as I go exploring the world once more. We now have a big motivator for exploration, since every wormhole we find is both a path back home and a part of the map we can explore whenever we want. Like this pig village, whose effigies I smash up and berries I steal. I wrap up the day by exploring more of the forests and chopping down some totally normal trees before finding myself at the Pig King village on the dawn of day 9. By the way, these obelisks are a source of nightmare fuel as well, so living near the Pig King is also a good idea as Shadow Winona, provided there's also a wormhole nearby. I scour the entire biome trying to look for one, but alas, I come up with nothing, except an excuse to show off yet another perk of these cool glasses. Inspect a riverway at the edge and bam! You can make a short-lived rose thorn bridge to cross over any and all gaps whenever you please. Absolutely for free. Saves you from getting screwed over by bad world generally on without needing to make a bunch of boats to cross rivers. Lovely. Brings us right to the Terraria chest too, which I helped myself to. Just before night breaks, I finally find the beefalo I set out for. I appropriately name it before I steal more pigskin from this touchstone and explore wherever this wormhole goes. It's took us right next to a clockwork rook. I was terrified to move and have it attack my beefalo, so right when day 10 landed, I quickly hopped back through the wormhole and with the power of my cool glasses, hopped right back to my base. All of this wormhole diving is going to kill my sanity, but I'll be fine, trust me. But yeah, the main reason I tamed that beefalo was just so I had a steady supply of poop for the base. One day I'll bother with taming a beefalo, but that's not today. Instead, I make a tidy sweeper to reskin these wormholes. This actually changes how they appear on the map too, so it's helpful at marking where wormhole destinations are at a glance. Besides that though, today was a slow day. I mainly focused on chopping trees and making a tidy little storage area. Crucial, but nothing too exciting. Can the same be said for day 11? Well, I started it out by making a bug net. There's one more Winona gadget I'm yet to actually make, and for that, we're gonna need some fireflies. But those don't come out until night, so I skipped on over to the quarry biome really close to my base, I can't get over how good this spot is, and did a bunch of mining. I pretty much end up mining at any given opportunity this run, since like I mentioned earlier, rocks are needed by the fistful for catapults. The golden niter are also neat too, I guess. Come dusk, I notice it'll be a full moon tonight, so I wormhole my way to the closest point to the deciduous biome, not before I use the glasses on a nearby touchstone to get some pure horror. Yep, if you have the Shadow Seeker skill maxed out, you actually have a 5% chance to get pure horror anytime you'd get nightmare fuel from inspecting something. And if you do it on certain structures in the ruins, it's actually a 25% chance as well, which gives us an incredibly easy and incredibly early source of pure horror, and it's not as useless as you might think. This thing gets decent use later on in the video, trust me. The full moon came, so I grabbed all the fireflies I set out to originally get, as well as good old Glommer before day 12 arrived during our exploration of the map. All the while I was gathering even more rocks and stones. It was a shame we didn't have a wormhole right next to the Pig King biome, but we gotta make do. I also took this time to capture some butterflies, since flowers were somewhat of a rare sight near our base. My sanity from all the wormhole hopping was finally catching up to me, so when I arrived home we had to deal with our first order of nightmare monsters. You see, originally I had this little silly self-imposed challenge where I was never going to make it any form of weapons and rely solely on my catapults for any and all damage, but that means I'd have no way to properly fight nightmares. So I decided to say stuff it to that plan and finally made my first spear. On day 13. It was a silly plan either way. After I took care of my sanity, we got our second hound attack. Bigger than the first one, but that's still not saying much, especially when we have these cool catapults giving us support. Well, I say support, they did most of the work for us. With the fireflies we caught on yesterday's trip, I crafted our first spotlight. This will provide a lovely bit of light to me when I'm in its huge radius during the dark. And, thanks to a perk I took, will also keep us warm in any of the cold seasons. Light and heat are no longer a problem in the confines of our base. Perfect. I celebrate this by annoying a bunch of spiders close to the base and sicking the catapults on them. These things are great for clearing out hordes of enemies, especially with the area upgrade. So all the spiders nearby the base can be farmed hassle-free for their super useful silk and other bits. Speaking of silk, do you know what that means? More catapults. We've got a very healthy little battery of them right here, enough to repel anything that comes to our base. Hopefully. Day 14. What better way to start this day than to head out into the wilderness and hunt more of those big evil depths worms that this event is all about. You'd probably forget there even was an event going on most of the time, but I digress. We deal with the worms either way. I take some time to clear out some spiders a bit further from the base so we can move them closer in due time. Sadly for us though, as I'm clearing out the den itself, I get mobbed by 2 spider warriors at the absolute worst moment and lose my helmet. I can't really tank or kite these guys reliably near my catapults, so I was forced to run away, which was easier said than done since the guys kept trying to kill my Chester. Honestly, this night was just utterly terrifying. I was just constantly worried about a spider warrior jumping out from me from the darkness. So much so I even hammered down a nearby pig house just so I could use its pigskin to make a football helmet. When day 15 arrived, I set up the catapults in a much better spot to finally properly clear out the spider den. Did I waste an entire day thanks to this stupid idea? Don't talk to me. I may be insane, injured, and still hungry, but I got a buttload of silk and the den itself, at last. So who's the real loser now, huh? Now let's move all this stuff back home and pretend that never happened, okay? Thank you. Anyway, I replaced the meat in the shrine since it's spoiled and brought some more lanterns. If you place these things near each other, they actually connect together and look super cool. As honestly kind of lame as the event itself may be from a gameplay standpoint, I can't argue with how cool the decorations are. Not that these lanterns are much use since I have a spotlight, but they look really nice. On day 16, I decided I want to get started on making some magic workstations. I got myself a top hat for the Prestidigitator, but also realised I want to make a shadow manipulator, so that means I'll need to find some gems. So I grabbed my shovel and started digging up all the nearby graves. All we got were just blue gems and amulets. We really needed red ones. And sadly, I was yet to find the actual graveyard biome. So back to exploring it was. I forgot to mention up until now, the Dragonfly Desert was literally right next door to my base across the river, because apparently my base location couldn't get any better. I decided to start exploring around here since I wanted to gamble on tumbleweed loot. But as I ran around this desert, gears started turning in my head. And the tumbleweeds. I have, 4 days left in autumn. I could spend those days doing menial base chores like getting a nightmare light and other magical guff set up, or I could do something impressive. Something I ain't ever done before. What if we kill the Dragonfly? I mean, I have already killed the Dragonfly in the past, don't get me wrong. Several times in fact. But I've never rushed the poor thing. Like, when I typically deal with the Dragonfly, it's after the first in-game year and I'm properly set up, and then some. So what if this time around, I prove to you how much of an ultra gamer I really am and kill the Dragonfly within the first few seasons? It'll take a lot of work and preparation, but I could totally do it, especially with Winona. So with my sights shifted, we had a new goal in mind: defeat the Dragonfly. For this, we're going to need catapults, armor, and healing. My plan was to get a bunch of catapults to burst the flying monarch down while I just tank her damage and heal through it. Something I've done in the past, but never this early on in a run. But it was settled. My plan was now in motion. I managed to find the Dragonfly itself and, after dealing with Chester almost burning himself alive, found a good spot to set up the old Dragonfly killing wall. That's gonna need a lot of rocks. On top of the couple hundred rocks we'll need to make even more catapults. The ones I had now could easily be moved over here thanks to portability, but I'd want at least another set of 7 to even try and fight the boss. We would also need more tape to make those catapults, so I spent that night hunting spiders for their precious, precious silk. It got a little bit in over my head, and sadly Poop Machine got caught in the crossfire. May God rest his soul. Silver lining, we now have the materials to make a handbow. Yay! At the dawn of day 18, we were under attack. It turns out the queen of the spiders was probably a little bit mad that I've been killing their underlings a bunch, and they decided to come towards the base. Though little did she expect, I had 7 rock-throwing catapults ready to concuss her into oblivion. Piece of cake. And she even gave us more silken glands, the latter of which will be our main way of healing throughout the Dragonfly's boss fight. I didn't really have any access to any good healing foods, so healing salves, butterflies, and even glommer goop it is. I love being unprepared for boss fights so much. I ended up burning up a few grass and twigs to get the ashes to make the healing salves, but as you'll soon see later on, that was a pretty terrible mistake. No point dwelling on it now though. Day 19. Started this day by getting the big old Dragonfly wall set up. The one we all know and love. The thing that stops her evil murderous flaming children from lighting us and our catapults on fire. Thankfully, I was very diligently mining rocks the entire playthrough up until now, so we had plenty for the walls. Though not so much for the catapults. But we still have time. Ish. I had to pause the wall construction for a little bit since we got another hound attack, which included the super rare Year 1 Autumn Firehound. I made sure to take care of this guy outside of the base, as well as the rest of the dogs, hassle-free. So back to mining rocks and building that wall. Thankfully, this is going to be something we only have to do once, since the wall is going to stay there forever. But the wall was only half of the battle. The other half was getting the catapults and generators moved over to the arena we're setting up for ourselves. So on the last day of autumn, I took care of that. Originally I was going to plan to get this done before the start of winter, but we can go a tiny bit over if we wanted, it's okay. As you can see here though, my plan is 2 sets of generators, which can hopefully cover a nice spot where we'll keep the Dragonfly if she gets pummeled to death by rocks. Right now we only have 8 catapults, so it was a matter of getting more. But unfortunately, I may have burned most of the grass and twigs that those things need. Whoops. Oh yeah, I forgot I do that, like the Majora's Mask transition. It is winter. The video would have ended here normally, but I ain't gonna leave you guys on a cliffhanger. For the first day of this chilly season, I found myself in a savanna biome, thanks to my magical glasses so I could get more grass. Turns out I need the grass for more than just catapults, since up until now I completely forgot the whole armour situation. We're just going to use football helmets to tank the damage from the Dragonfly this time around since I cannot be bothered to get marble. We have plenty of pigskin anyway from all the touchstones we found, and we're going to have plenty more later on when I make some cool pig farm designs with catapults that I really need to show you. I made myself a thermal stone, used Poop Machine's meat to make a handbat, and got my inventory ready to head out to the Dragonfly one last time. We had our helmets, our catapult, our pan flute to calm her down just in case she gets enraged, and of course our honestly quite pathetic selection of healing supplies. And that pure horror we found all those days ago. And thus, we set off. Oh my god, I forgot about these guys. Not the best time for this, all things considered, since I had no way of dealing with it properly, so I just used my pan flute and ran away, letting the spiders deal with old McTusk. Did get us a little bit injured before the big fight, but at this point, I'm committed, I'm not backing down now. When I arrived at the catapult setup, I took care to move them back a tiny bit, as whilst I was building them, I noticed that some of the catapults would reach the lava, and since those guys are considered hostile, would be attacked on sight. We really don't need that happening because it'll enrage the Dragonfly. Have I had a past Dragonfly run ended by such an occurrence? I don't want to talk about it. It also got super cold super fast because, you know, winter. But thanks to that heated spotlight perk I have, I wouldn't have to worry about that at all before, during, or even after the fight. I wrapped up that night of prep by making some more catapults, as well as treating myself to some cooked cactus flesh for sanity. If I'm going to be using Glommer Goop to heal, I gotta be careful about going insane, since despite it healing a bunch, it also drains your sanity even more. One last thing I did though before the next day. Remember that pure horror? I threw it into one of the generators which souped it up with evil nightmare energy. This basically gives it a bunch of fuel, as well as making it so any attached catapults now do extra planar damage. Might be enough to tip the scales in our favour. But day 22 hit us, the day we were gonna fight this thing. Whilst we still had extra daylight, I continued the prep from last night, gathering more rocks for an extra catapult or two, and making sure my sanity wasn't too low by feasting on half a desert's worth of cactus flesh. But as dusk bathed the landscape, I decided that now was the time. I ran around my wall to get the attention of the big girl herself, taking some nasty hits on the way back to my army. The moment I got back into position, I cranked my catapults into overdrive and started wailing on the big bug. Within mere seconds, we were able to stun the Dragonfly. This can only happen if you deal such a high amount of damage in a short time, and with all of the catapults we had, no wonder we hit that. The fight went on as usual. She got back up, summoned her brood, and got back to fighting, where we were able to knock her out a second time. This is really, really good, as I was starting to feel a little bit anxious about all of the damage I was taking. Tanking with just football helmets isn't the best idea, but kiting her would be super difficult with our current setup. Thankfully, it looked like the fight was in our favour. We were doing such stupidly high amounts of damage in a short time, and we still had our Glommer Goop to fall back on when we ran out of healing salves. Our helmets looked fine, our generators were full, so when the old bird came back down one last time, we crushed her. Oh boy, look at our stats. We were barely prepared for this fight with our healing and armour. But we still did it. Dragonfly down earlier than I've ever done it before. I'm quite proud of that, to be fair. Looks like I'm kinda good at the game after all, huh? And as day 23 blessed us, I took all I could and started heading back home. We now had access to some scales and the ability to make a scaled furnace, just in time for our first winter. How else could this day get any better? Oh, like that. Perfect. But that seems like a good spot to end this video for today. I'll go back and get the rest of the stuff soon, but thank you so much for watching. It's been nice playing some good old DST again, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did playing it. Let me know if you'd want me to continue this series. I'm already excited for what future this world holds for us. And don't worry, I'm still going to do lore videos. I just want a nice little even spread of lore videos, gameplay videos, and whatever that last video was. But for now, I bid you farewell. Cheers everybody, have a lovely night. Bye bye.